state dinner, he was at the tech handshake this morning, he was at the State Department luncheon, so he's really moving and shaking just the right places. Nikhil Kamath, thank you very much, and it's great to be here. It's a bit rainy, but it's fantastic to catch up with you.
Thank you, Rahul. Thank you.
So you must have been the youngest person who got invited because of what he's done, not because of any other association at the State Department. So there's Mukesh Ambani, Anand Mahindra, and you. A lot of people watching would be very jealous and saying, what's Nikhil doing? How's he getting these fancy tickets?
Well, I think they were very kind, and I have to say I was surprised too, but I don't know, maybe this is testament to show that the government wants to support youngsters, a newer, younger breed of entrepreneurs. So I think it's something to kind of like be excited by, and I really cherish the experience. I learned so much from so many people that I met. I'm exhausted because, like you know, it's been a tough 2-3 days, and I've been working nights because the Indian markets open like at midnight. And yeah, looking forward to getting back and sleeping.
Well, that's interesting that you said, because Modi ji is not tired. He's at it, bang bang, right? And Nikhil, like the youngest guy in the room, is saying, I'm tired, mera ho gaya, mujhe neend chahiye.
I don't know how he's not tired. Like, I'll give you an example of this morning. We had a meeting which began at 9:30 a.m. and it finished at 12 something, where he spoke for a reasonable amount of time, and then from there we went to another meeting where he spoke again for a reasonable amount of time. Now at 4 p.m. he has gone to the Kennedy Center where he's making another speech, and his team was telling me they're going to go to Egypt later today, and then they're going to do the same thing all over again. I don't know where the energy comes from.
Sure. Do you want to talk a bit about the tech handshake? Sam Altman, Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadella, all the movers and shakers there in that room. You were there too. How do you see this tech collaboration between India and the United States shape up from here?
Yeah, I think many possibilities, many opportunities. There is a friendship which has kind of formed between our Prime Minister and the US President, which was evident for all of us in the room to see. They were really pally with each other and, you know, like joking and stuff like that.
You got to see Biden's funny bone?
Yeah, and he is quite funny. And I think even from like when I was in the room, when they asked me to speak, I was talking about the India stack and all the opportunities of exporting exporting our India stack and many things in our banking ecosystem per se to the West. Because banking in India, I must say, is more efficient, cheaper and faster than Western countries. And I think we're trying that experiment with Singapore a little bit, but India stack abroad I think will be a very valuable product. It doesn't even have to be implemented in a manner where India has any of the data. The data can be localized in their geography. But I think that's a huge opportunity for us to work with them, wherein we not only transport services, or we not only transfer services, but IP of some sort which has been organically created in India.
So you met up with Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, Sam Altman. You want to talk a bit about how it was meeting with them and your big takeaways from those meetings?
Well, each one of them had a different viewpoint, and so it was interesting talking to them about stuff I don't understand too well maybe, like generative AI, but each one of them, like be it Microsoft, Google or Sam Altman, they seem to be on the forefront of it. So, you know, Keynes once said the biggest problem, if we didn't have work, what would we do? The problem of not knowing what to do is a problem in itself, and it feels like when productivity is going to be taken away by whatever AI transforms to into the future, and a large section of society necessarily need not work in the manner that they work today. It's a very interesting use case, and one has to ponder about how the world, the socio-economics, even the geopolitics of the world change by virtue of something like that? Do we shift to some form of socialism with UBI and a bunch of benefits at the bottom and optional capitalism for the people who opt into it on top? How do the incumbent winners of capitalism transition? Because I'm guessing the transition will be most painful for them. And if there is a transition, how long is the transition, and how painful is the transition? So there are many, many questions for the day when generative AI in a manner can truly think. But I guess nobody knows. Everybody had a different viewpoint, and I think nobody agreed with the other. But these are very interesting questions for even us to ponder, people who don't know.
Sure. One of the things the US is trying to help India with is developing a innovation ecosystem in India. And one of the realities is, and we're seeing that with generative AI, which you just spoke about, a lot of the cutting edge innovation continues to happen in the United States. What is it that you're going back with in terms of what can India, this government and young startups like you do to try and foster an innovation ecosystem which isn't just pandering to the Indian market in terms of e-commerce and social commerce, but actually at the very cutting edge of technological change?
Again, interesting question. I asked this to a bunch of people. Why is so much innovation happening in the US?
Why do you think that's the case?
Well, what people told me was things like culture, the rebellious attitude, the American dream which has been sold for a long, long time. See, Rahul, innovation is happening in India, albeit in different forms. For innovation which needs a certain number of building blocks to align before which people can truly innovate, for innovations of that sort, I think India will get there organically. I think a lot is being done to improve education, the infra around education by the incumbent government in India. But I feel like maybe a good idea to kind of like, also not, in my own personal view, right? I might totally be wrong, but I think education systems should not have to be as conformist as they were. In my own life, like, I've hated school growing up because partly because I was not very smart and a good student, but also because
this is India's youngest self-made billionaire.
Also because I think you're not given the option to figure out what your passion is and pursue it as much as you're told what you should learn. Historically, I don't think evolution worked like that. I think back in the day, I'm talking many hundreds of years ago, kids were brought up by societies at large, and their parents did not indoctrinate their belief systems upon their kids, and the kids had the option to learn from every member of the community. That allowed for people to be more philosophical, more creative, and I think going back to our roots, not our immediate roots, but our historical roots, in a manner might take us back to a point where education is not as conformist as the kids might see in school today.
It also seems interesting that you've been involved with the whole GIFT project, trying to get a lot of investment bankers to come to India, set up base in Ahmedabad, Gandhinagar. Do you see that working out well? I mean, the project has been in the works for a long time. Is it now finally achieving some level where it can take off?
So, Rahul, when I went to GIFT first, we were the first fund to set up there. I think like a couple of years ago. There were maybe a couple of hundred people, 5 cows, and a few like cycles on the street. When I went to GIFT the last time around, which was a month and a half, it's transformed. I think it's hard to today get real estate in. There are like big companies like Bank of America with thousands. And structurally, the ease of business, I think GIFT has taken it very seriously that they're not competing with India anymore, but they're competing with a DIFC in Dubai or Singapore. And the regulators sitting in the same premise, and I happen to know the regulators there quite well, and they're doing an incredible job at engaging with people who want to set up at GIFT. and helping them in any manner that they can. And I think the Prime Minister has kind of like conceived of creating this offshore location onshore in a manner, but I think in a couple of years, GIFT, if I were to be a betting man and if I were to bet, I would say we'll do better than DIFC in Singapore.
Well, you need some alcohol there. I know we're on TV, but no bankers coming and working in Gandhinagar, Ahmedabad. If at the end of a long day when he's off his screen, he can't go to a nice pub, okay? So you need to keep that in mind.
I think it'll happen. I think people that are really forward-looking, and I think, like, if you look at the changes that have happened in GIFT, right, there have been a lot. And I know it's funny talking about alcohol, but I think it'll happen. I think everything that GIFT needs will happen.
No, so you're also developing the reputation of being an investor who thinks, right? And a young investor who thinks. What are the, and I'm not just saying this in the context of India and the United States right now, but what are the bets that you think you're thinking about very deeply, which if people thought about as well, they could potentially benefit from?
Yeah, so there are 2 or 3 themes. Like, I asked myself this question: what do I want to spend the next decade of my life doing, or the next 2 decades of my life doing? The sectors that I really like, if I'll narrow it down to 2. I think on top of my list is senior living. For the population of the planet to or population of a country to remain flat, the replenishment rate is about 2.1. So Rahul and his wife have to give birth to 2.1 kids. India used to be significantly higher than that, right? Like, I would say 4, 3.5, 4, not many years ago. If you look at states like Karnataka or Maharashtra today, we're under 2.1. So what happened in Japan for a long time when fertility rates or birth rates dropped drastically is you have that 30, 40, 50-year-old 50-year period where you kind of have like a aging older population. I think that will happen not just in India but across the world. Like, I was reading somewhere that in Hungary they're waiving off 25% federal taxes if a woman has 1 child, and they're waiving off 100% if the woman has 4 kids. In China, they tried forcing the 3-child policy because the 1-child policy created this demographical problem in China, but people don't seem to be buying it. And I think the challenge of tomorrow will be how to incentivize people to have more children. Notwithstanding the challenges, the world will have a significantly older population soon. So betting on anything that caters to that audience, it could be anything in geriatric care, it could be senior assisted living, it could be a hospital focused only on the old, it could be a whole host of services that the elderly need, both from a charitable lens and a non-charitable capitalistic lens. Both avenues, this is something I will probably spend a lot of time exploring and investing in, and hopefully operating as well in the next decade.
Yeah. The second one?
And the second theme is, so this is a little hard for me to say because I have voiced my critique of real estate for such a long time. Like, anytime anybody...
You don't like houses. You don't want people to buy houses.
I still live in a rented house, and the only house I have ever owned is the house my parents live in and stuff like that. But so the evolution of a house is very interesting. I remember reading this book by Bill Bryson, if I remember it right. It's called House. It talks about how a dining table came into being, why a bathroom or a toilet came into being. The very early version of a toilet, before there was plumbing and flushing and all of that, was generally a cabinet where you could, do your makeup and, probably have some water and perfumes and stuff like that. People of back in the day did not bathe every day, but they did it like once in a week or a fortnight, right? So every element of your home has evolved in a certain manner because of some kind of innovation. Like the toilet changed so many things. Same goes for your dining table, your bedroom, your living room, your kitchen, all of that. As far as I can see today, I feel innovation on the housing side has kind of stalled for the last many years. We had the apartments and stuff like that, but nothing has changed drastically in the last 30-40 years. If I want to buy a new home tomorrow, I'm going to think how many bedrooms, how many bathrooms, how big is the living room. I think that could change in the future. I think people will become more open-minded, and I also feel, personally, I feel like when families are becoming smaller and smaller and more fragmented per se, I feel like there is a huge opportunity in community living which people are not taking so seriously right now. But PropTech is a big theme for us. We have a company called Gruhas, along with a partner of ours called Abhijit Pai, where we are investing into a lot of companies in PropTech, which also negate the effect of carbon in construction. Construction is the largest proponent of this, with about 30% of emissions coming from there. So things like smart water meters, brick companies made from fly ash and plastic. So this has become a parallel theme. It hasn't totally played out yet. I don't know how the house will change, but I think people will be willing to change the way they look upon their dwelling in a manner that they haven't in the recent past.
Okay, and finally, what to you was the highlight of the state dinner yesterday? What stood out as the most interesting thing?
Well, the state dinner had, what, 300, 400 people. It was a big event. Like, you know, it was, it looks a lot more exclusive when there is a video of one person walking in somewhere and somebody shoots it, but it was a big event with many people. Whoever planned the event, whoever organized the seating, it looked like there were some Indians and some Americans on every table. There was a mix. It wasn't like this section is that and that section is this. So I was sitting next to somebody who was one of the economic advisors at the White House. And, you know, that's like my jam, right? Like, those are the people I love sitting next to. Like I was sitting next to the Secretary of Housing right now. So the economic advisor was talking to me about, you know, what he thought of the debt and the fiscal deficit and what he thinks will happen to interest rates going forward. All the narratives about will there be a contest upon dollar supremacy, and is the share of dollar trade and world trade coming down. So many varied interesting topics like that. Most of these questions do not have a yes or no answer. That's why talking to people in person becomes so interesting, because from their lens you get a different answer. And I think if you have two different answers, you can weigh and figure out which one you want to lean towards and which one you do not.
Fascinating. Thank you so much, and all the best, and more power to what you're doing, and enjoy the coffee. Thanks, Nikhil. Thanks. Cheers.
Thank you, Rahul.